Hello and welcome to the Property Lifestyle Mastery podcast. I'm Jackie Tomes, and on this show we are talking about how to invest in property and build businesses that ultimately create freedom in all of its different forms, from financial, time, location and emotional. And this week, my guest is Stacey Rochelle from Thanet and Kent Chiropractic. And Stacey has been one of the most important people in my entire life who I have ever met, and I have been working closely with her for nearly 10 years now. Stacey is a chiropractor, but that is just the tip of the iceberg of what she does. Really, Stacey has an incredible way of interpreting what the body is trying to tell us and how that ultimately helps us to make different decisions about how we treat ourselves and what we do, that for myself has created so much more access to freedom than I ever thought possible. Stacey has a waiting list of literally years to get in and have a session with her, so we're so lucky to have her joining us for this conversation this week to share her wisdom and how you can help to decode your body, find out what it's trying to tell you, and how this can transform your business results if you listen. So without further ado, here's Stacey. Hello, Stacey.
Hello.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you back on the podcast again. If you haven't already listened to Stacey's first ever podcast she did with us about a year or so ago, make sure you have listened to that as well. But I'm super excited to have you back for this conversation today. If you don't already know how much we love Stacey, me and Dave love Stacey. She's been such an important person in our life. So your headline banner is that you're a chiropractor, but obviously you are so much more than all of that, looking at the body in a really holistic way. And you run a clinic in Westgate where you are Thanet and Kent Chiropractic, and me and Dave have been seeing you regularly for not long enough, 9 years I think now, and every time we see you we get better and better. And we've been so lucky to have you helping us out, particularly through the tough times that we've had in business and how that's affected our health. And you've really been an amazing support through all of that. So we were very excited that when we had the brainwave inspiration to invite you to come on our retreat that we run once a year out in Italy, to come and bring your magic and your wisdom to our clients and our mentees. And so the sort of conversation today is really coming off the back of that piece of work that you did with us back in June of 2025, and actually probably links even to the previous year as well, when 2024. And our retreat was really focused around team and how you work with your team within your business to ultimately create freedom. And we had you along with some other amazing therapists there helping to support the fact that this is not just about, it's not just about business and about having a strategy. It's actually about you and how you look after yourself that ultimately determines your business success. So that's a big long-winded explanation to basically say the reason we're having this conversation today is off the back of that, because there were just some really interesting insights that you came across from having all of these sessions with the people that we work very closely with. And so, yeah, that's what today's about. Anything that you want to say about the retreat before we get on into it?
Just that I think it was absolutely incredible, the work you did, Jackie, the fact you assembled the dream team. We talked about it on the retreat, saying it was amazing to have all of us there, and how amazing for the people on the retreat to get the advice and wisdom of all of us. It was really cool to see how it all kind of intermingled as well.
Was really amazing. And I guess, so just for context, there's other people that we had there. We had Rebecca Hill, who's also been on this podcast before, and we had Simon Tandri, and also Simona as well. We're going to be doing some podcasts with those guys as well over the coming weeks along similar lines, like taking away our lessons. But I think all of you guys have been so important to me, Dave and Dom. So to be able to have everyone together, it was awesome. Yeah, it was
pretty special. No, it was pretty special to have everyone together. It was really cool.
So tell me then what you want to tell us maybe a little bit of an overview about the sessions that you were having with people. Try and give us a little bit of a window into what sort of thing is going on with you in a session, maybe before we come to some of the insights.
Okay, so what I'm always looking for, and again, it's a little bit different, like if somebody's coming to me for a particular reason, or if they're coming just because they want to sort of see what things are going on. Obviously, if somebody's coming because they've got pain in a specific area, we might focus a little bit more on why they're getting that pain. But I love it when we can kind of go, they're not really bringing anything to me, but let's have a look and see what's going on. So we really just want to look at how the body is functioning, because that will give you an insight into how you're doing from a health perspective. So that can be, we use a number of different techniques, just by observing how people stand, looking at their posture, looking at range of motion, movement, looking at, muscle tension. And then also a big part of what I do is using manual muscle testing. So I do a technique called applied kinesiology, which is something that is a technique that you can do if you're a chiropractor, osteopath, physio. Lots of different people can do it if they have the sort of background training. Then you can go and train to be an applied kinesiologist. And the way that sort of fits in with that holistic way of looking at people, I really like, and that's why I just fell in love with the technique. The way I describe it sometimes to people is we kind of look at your health like a three-legged stool. And the three legs of that stool is you've got the physical stuff, you've got the chemical stuff, and you've got the emotional stuff. And really, you can't look at one without the other. If we just completely focus on physical stuff, we miss a huge part of what's going on. So I love the three-legged stool analogy, because in order for a three-legged stool to stand, it needs all three legs to work. And I think that's a really important thing for people to take away when they're thinking about their health. A lot of the time people will kind of go, oh, I go to the gym every day, that means I'm healthy. That's a part of it, but what else are you doing? And are you looking at the chemical side of things? What are you eating? What are you putting into your body? But also, are you looking at the emotional side of things? What's your stress levels like? How do you deal with stress? Have you dealt with some emotional stuff that you might be carrying? You can't just look at one factor and think, okay, I go to the gym every day, I'm healthy, because that might be physical health, but what's going on in the whole picture? And that's where, it's looking holistically, from the top to the bottom, but also you're looking holistically at all the different factors that are going on. So I never know, when I have a session with someone, I never know where it's going to take me. Like sometimes I might have an idea where I'm like, oh, I think we're going to talk about this, but often we go in
the complete
whatever.
Surprise.
Exactly. And how I sometimes describe it to people is that I'm just listening to what the body's telling me. That what I'm trying to do is to kind of say, right, this is what the body's telling me, and put that in a way where you can understand it. If you don't know what's going on with your body, or you're not very sort of medically trained or whatever. Even people that are trained don't often know what's going on with their bodies, but I'll just kind of see what the body wants to tell me and put that in a way that you can understand it. And then that helps so much going forwards, because you then have more of an idea of what you need to do,
what you need to listen to. You're basically going in to have a session for 45 minutes or an hour, and you're basically having a conversation with the body, talking in the language of the body to decode it, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. So generally session times can vary. So in my normal clinic, session times are normally half an hour. Sometimes they'll be 45 minutes. If I haven't seen somebody before, then I will do longer. And it depends, if I'm dealing with a really complex case, then that will need longer sessions. With my regular patients, when I'm familiar with someone and I see them a lot, we're following on from what we've done the time before. So you don't need as much time, but it's good to have that time, because you often find you'll go in different directions. But yeah, you're kind of there to decode what the body is saying. And I know that you've spoken before about Louise Hay and all of the work that she's done. And I love her stuff. I think it's really brilliant. that, there's her stuff, and there's other books as well that talk about, if you have this symptom, this is what it can relate to. And that really brings in what the body is trying to tell you. And that relates into if you have pain in your right shoulder as opposed to your left shoulder. There's a reason why it's right as opposed to left. Now, again, that reason might be, oh, you've had an accident and hurt the right shoulder. Or it could be whatever's going on emotionally is impacting the right side more than the left side. And there's different reasons why it might impact the right side over the left side. So yeah, it's all about kind of decoding the messages of the body and decoding the
It's
picture.
so interesting. Yeah, I remember because I broke my toe a
Mhm.
couple of years ago, and it kind of just seemed like a random event. But then when I read up in Louise Hay what she'd said about breaking a toe, it was basically her emotional reason behind it was like basically fear of moving forwards in life. And when I
Mhm.
read that, I just like burst into tears because it like totally related to what was
Yeah.
going through. And it's just kind of amazing that that is what like how did that it wasn't a random thing, like maybe there was already a weakness in the toe that led to that thing happening in the first place. Like it's just quite amazing what and I feel like for me whenever it's so often I'm crying when I see you because you just like touch on like the little nerves that you can't quite see and you like
Yeah.
get a bit emotional and then it's just like a release and you suddenly then feel a lot lighter afterwards.
And part of that, that's part of what I kind of do is, we sort of find those blockages in the system and release what it is. Because what we're trying to do is get the body to do the work. The body is amazing. It's got this innate ability to heal itself. But what happens is things get in the way. If we've got restrictions or tensions or emotional restrictions or whatever, it gets in the way of allowing the body to do its thing, because the body is amazing. Everything that it does is to help you, but things get in the way and things stop it. So we want to try and remove those roadblocks so the body can do what it does. But yeah, I mean, Louise Hay stuff is amazing. I have like a collection of books that are all along a similar lines, and it can get so specific into even if you have a restriction at a specific level of your spine that relates to something in particular. And it brings in so many different things. So yeah, it's all about decoding the body, and you're trying to look at, is there an emotional component to this, or is it purely just something that is physical, or is there a chemical component? And I will say, again, this might be a bit skewed from the patients that I tend to see, the people that I tend to see. It is incredibly rare that I have a situation where something is purely just physical. I can think of
Because people think
maybe,
like chiropractor is like
yeah,
purely physical, right? Like, and I think that's like everyone's like, oh gosh, so what are you then if you're looking at more than the physical? So yeah, go on. What might be
yeah, and I
underneath
think
the physical?
I think it's difficult because a lot of chiropractors are like, probably especially in the UK, like the vast majority of chiropractors are just very physical. They want to just work on the physical side. But chiropractic, when it started, was originally about impacting the nervous system and impacting the whole health of the body. So it's really kind of going back to the roots of what chiropractors were. And for me, I find so often people will come with the physical problem, but you kind of like pick at that sort of bit of information, and like you said, you kind of hit a nerve. And so often I will say to people, oh, okay, so this issue is here and this could connect into this. And they just go, oh my goodness, get out of my head. How do you know that? And it's just because you're reading the language of the body, like you're reading what the body is telling you. And that's the thing, that whatever's happening, it's your body's always trying to communicate with you. So whether it's via pain, or it's like, oh, I can't use this joint as well as I can, like there's a reason for it. The body's trying to communicate with you. And what we have to try and do, and what you have to try and do with yourself, but also you need people around you to be able to go like, okay, I need to go to this person to find out what's happening here, is to go, okay, what are you trying to say to me? Okay, I've got a pain in my shoulder. Why do I have a pain in my shoulder? What are you trying to say to me? What's the reason for that? And again, yes, it can be purely physical. I don't often find that it is purely physical. There's more stuff going on
Mm.
underneath. And I think my journey has changed so much from being a very physically based practitioner to becoming more holistic. And I think really the last couple of years, and especially a lot of the work that we've done, like with the people on the retreat and stuff like that, has really kind of enforced how much that emotional side of things is so important as well. And that really opened, a whole nother aspect of treatment, really, to kind of go like, oh wow, this is a huge part that I wasn't kind of connecting in and tapping into. And so, it's just, yeah, kind of that connection was really cool.
It's really nice. Because I think the group of people that are coming together on the retreat who you're coming and treating is quite a different kind of style, demographic of person. I don't know what the word would be to use it to maybe who you're seeing day to day, like more of a there's like a type of person that we kind of attract, people who are like they're all building their own business, they're all doing a lot of things, they're out of their comfort zone, they're obviously attracted to working with myself, Dave, and Dom, who we have a certain openness and vibe and emotional vulnerability. So it's quite a different type of person. Can you just explain what that difference that kind of means in reality for you then?
Yeah, so I think it is like going into it, I already knew sort of in a way the kind of person I was going to be dealing with, and I know that they're going to be a lot more open to when things get a bit like
Bit funky.
oh, get a bit weird and get a bit weird and wonderful. But you kind of go like, okay, we can go down this road, and you're open to exploring this. Yeah, and it is just it's a different kind of demographic. I mean, within my clinic, I tend to attract a certain type of people, and they always say you attract the people that suit the way that you work. But I have far more of a range in my clinic of, people that I'm doing very different things with. Whereas on the retreat, it was, whilst it was different, yeah, there definitely was a type of kind of person.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, one of the interesting things that we found through both retreats was there was a postural thing that we noticed where if you look at somebody from the side, they should have three, or technically four curves, but three main curves in the spine. So you should curve inwards at your neck, outwards at your upper back, and inwards in your lower back. And that's called the cervical lordosis, the thoracic kyphosis, and the lumbar lordosis. And the reason we have those curves is to make the spine stronger. So your spine is stronger with the presence of those curves. Whereas if you just have a completely straight spine, then it's not going to be as strong and it's going to be more vulnerable. What we found with majority of people on the retreat, I think there was the odd couple of people, maybe like three or four, maybe three that come to mind, who had the curvature as it should be. Majority of people on the retreat had an upper back that was too flat, so the curve wasn't as curved, it was too flat. Now that is unusual because within the general public, most people will have a curve that is too curved. So that's the kind of classic vision of somebody who's sort of hunched over and their head's forward. That's that kind of classic posture that you'll see if you just watch people walking around. You'll be like, oh yeah, that person's back is too curved. Most people will have a back that's overly curved. It's more unusual to have a back that is too straight. And that straightening of the back is often associated with trauma, or, and that can be a physical trauma or it can be an emotional trauma. And again, that opens up the question of, does that then become a driver to why
Success.
pursue certain things and why people are driven in a certain way? But it was just something that was very interesting because it's certainly something that even within my practice that I like, if I was to think about the percentages, like it's not that high of a percent of people that have that flattened upper back. I do have people that have it, but it was just every time I saw another person on the retreats, I kind of was like, oh my gosh, another one that's got a flat
Other
back.
one. Oh, it's so interesting. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I would say definitely say that feels true to me, that I kind of like had various, things, events that happened in my childhood, and this kind of like, I suppose, this drive that came out as a result of it, of kind to like hide from that, um, prove people wrong somehow, like some stuff underneath all of this. And I can see how that could be true, because we're working with people who are all actively already doing stuff. And I guess a lot of people who are listening to this podcast will probably fit into this same category as well. And it's just interesting to be able to have that pointed out, and to like just be aware of that within yourself, and what that, like, is that drive, where's that drive coming from, is it a drive that's serving you, like, and just questioning it.
And I think, it's one of those things that whatever happens in your life and stuff, it makes you who you are. It kind of pushes you to do what you do. But there is also times where you need to kind of pause and go like, okay, is this drive of why I'm wanting to do this coming from a healthy place? Am I wanting to do this because, I'm trying to people please, or I'm trying to prove someone wrong, or am I doing it because it's what I want to do? And I think it is interesting to kind of question that in yourself. And it was very interesting to just have that as such an obvious kind of postural thing that you could see, to sort of go, wow, okay, there's a connection here with a lot of the people that are drawn to, I don't know whether it's people that are drawn to property. I don't know whether it's people that are drawn to, I can say it's people that are drawn to working with you. Maybe if you were
Yeah.
to look at, not that there's anything wrong with you, but like, just if you were
No.
to maybe look at people who are like super high achievers, would they all have a similar thing? I don't know, but it was just interesting in the cohort that we looked at. And it's just, again, just kind of trying to get people to understand that that can be a sign that there is some trauma within your childhood, your history. And again, people always kind of go, oh my God, that's got to be something massive, it's got to be something huge. It doesn't have to be something big. They talk about big T traumas and little T traumas, and the big traumas are the ones that we kind of think about, but the little ones we tend not to think about. And the other thing as well that's really interesting, and kind of from the work we did on the retreat, it started me down this journey, is that sometimes those traumas might not even be your traumas. It can be
Oh, go on.
yeah, so it can be ancestral trauma. So, if there's traumas that have happened in your ancestral line that haven't been dealt with, people haven't done the work, they've kind of just gone, this happened, I'm going to forget about it, it doesn't happen, that can get passed down. And so you might be carrying a trauma that you don't even know about, that your body is having to deal with that because it's passed down in how the genes express themselves. So and it's interesting, because when I first kind of thought about it, I was a bit like, is this a bit too out there? Because I'm always somebody where I'm like, it has to make sense, from my sciencey kind of background. Does it make sense? Do I understand it? And I think the first point to start with is just to kind of recognize and go, we know that stress can change your DNA. It can change how your DNA expresses itself. So if so many times when people go through health issues, they'll often go like, oh gosh, yeah, I went through this period of stress and then I was diagnosed with X. And we know with a lot of conditions, especially what they call autoimmune conditions, so things that just where your body starts kind of attacking itself, where it kind of it sort of goes, oh, something's wrong with this part of me, which it recognizes it as there's something wrong where there actually isn't something wrong. We know so often that is triggered by stress. So we know that stress can change how your DNA, how the genes switch on or off. So you can have the gene for something, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have that condition. So if you have the gene, you have to then have the right environment to switch on the gene or switch off the gene. So that's the first kind of thing to kind of to sort of really say, okay, even like if something happens to me and I go through a stressful situation, that might change how my genes are expressing themselves. So if that happens and I don't deal with what happened, I don't deal with that stressful situation, I just pretend it never happened and I repress it and I push it down, that change in how my gene expresses itself is going to pass on in my DNA. So it's going to pass on to future generations that are then going to have to deal with it. Now that becomes difficult because you don't know what you're dealing with.
And this is like thousands of years of everyone before you everyone's had this, and if no one's ever dealt with it, you basically have thousands of years of genetic, well, I didn't have to say the word right, expression, but just because of it.
Yeah, we don't know how far it can go back. But there was a study that was done, I think it was done in 2013, where they had mice, and every time they sprayed a cherry blossom scent into the like place where they had the mice, they gave the mice an electric shock. So they associated this scent with a trauma or something that was stressful, and they then allowed that mouse to go and have children. So I think it was male mice that they were working with. So that mouse then had children and grandchildren. The children and grandchildren had a heightened response to the cherry blossom scent. They were more sensitive to that scent. They had a negative reaction to that scent, even though they'd never experienced or witnessed the original incident that happened. And that study for me was like the moment where I was like, oh my God, it's actually, it's true. Like
proof.
You know, that thing of going, yeah, okay, so it changes. Now, that was only done with children, grandchildren. Who knows how many generations you can go. And like with the work that I've done, you know, it's been really interesting because I sort of started and I was like, oh, I don't know how much I'm sort of feeling this, but I'm going to go with it. I'm going to trust my intuition and you know, then kind of bringing in the sciencey bits. And the part that really kind of seals it for me is I might say to somebody like, oh, there's something that was in relation to your mum when she was aged 14. And I don't know what it is, but there's something. Now, their mum was still alive. And so they've then gone back to their mum and said, what was going on in your life at this time? And the mum's gone, oh, okay, there was this big event that was incredibly stressful and hard to deal with. And, you know, it was a great struggle. Now, I didn't know that. The patient that was in the room didn't know that. But suddenly we've been able to go, this is a point. Now, obviously, when you're going generations and generations and generations back, you can't ask people because they're not here.
You can't go and ask. But you're right, you've got enough of the like anecdotal of the generations that we can go and ask. And actually making me realise that probably with my mum, if I read back to my WhatsApp messages, I'm like, Mum, Stacey says when I was 3 months old in the womb, something happened to you. Like, what was it? And yes, something did happen, and you get the information about it. And I had one very recently that I asked a question. I was like, God, all this stuff happened in my childhood, and you're totally unaware of it, but it was happening. You just weren't consciously aware of it, and you're taking it in because of that information that's around. Like, it's just incredible what the answers that you can get to by just like pointing in the right direction. It's mad.
Yeah. And so much, you know, our conscious mind is such a small amount of what we understand and what we know. And so much of what we kind of know and what we feel and what is stored is all something we're not even aware of. It's subconscious. And there's so many things, like, I think up to the age of 5, that development that happens up to the age of 5 and things that happen in that period are the most vital and important things that can then influence the trajectory of someone's whole life. Where it gets really fascinating. And again, I think the important thing whenever you're talking about something like this is to really approach it with a no blame kind of attitude.
Mm.
And it's not about, you know, kind of approaching your parents or people in your life and kind of going, well, you know, you caused a trauma to me
What did you
because,
do to me?
yeah, exactly, you know, that's
I
not a
didn't mean to.
helpful thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
most of the time, there are exceptions, but most of the time, people are doing the best they can with the knowledge they have and the resources they have. And, you know, show me a person that gets out of childhood without at least some kind of trauma from it or some kind of issue from childhood. You know, it happens to everyone. But it's not about blame. It's not about kind of, oh, they did this. It's kind of just recognizing and going, this happened. There's a reason why I am the way that I am, and there's a reason why my body is showing certain things. And we have to just recognize it and put language to it and accept it and go, it is what it is. I'm not going to feel angry about it. I'm not going to be bitter about it. I'm not going to be whatever. I'm going to accept that it is what it is. And then that's what helps you to move on. One of the most important things is putting language to something like, and this happens, you know, if you have a bad day, it helps so much to talk to someone and to just go, this was my bad day. I felt this, I felt that. And maybe they might give you some advice. Maybe they might just listen, but you feel better after you've done it. So putting language to something really helps. When we don't put language to something, when we kind of suppress it down, those are the things that cause bigger problems. And those are the things, if they never get dealt with, that then pass on to future generations.
Just your way of finding a way to process it. And if we don't even know that it's there, we can't process it. So you're basically getting to the point that you're identifying that there is something there and just opening up the awareness and then the conversation. So you would say that then, again, in our cohort of people, again, probably likely to be similar people listening to this, you felt that that was a place that you got drawn to more as a general rule, like the ancestral stuff? Interesting. Why do you think that
Yeah,
is?
so I had started to explore it a little bit, but it really kind of kicked into a whole nother gear where, you know, it was just like, okay, this is definitely, there's something here. And there was a couple of instances where I said a line and somebody just burst into tears. And it's like, okay, you've really hit on something there. And it was just like, that's nothing to do with you. That's, you know, it was about another family member, you know, in the past. Or, you know, I would say to somebody, right, there's something at this date with this thing. And they go back to family and they come back to me and they go, yeah, that is exactly right. You hit the nail on the head. So it's sort of going, okay, there's something here. I was really drawn to kind of working that out. And I guess part of it is the emotional stuff is often the harder stuff to deal with, because we have to accept that it's there and it's a part of it. And it's much easier to go, I just want to focus on the physical stuff. And even it's much easier to go, I just want to focus on the chemical stuff. You know, I'm going to eat a really healthy diet. I'm going to make sure that my gut's in a good place. You know, I'm going to do all of that. I'm going to fast. I'm going to, you know, that's easier to focus on than, okay, I've got to unpack some of this emotional stuff, because you have to kind of then sort of acknowledge and go, okay, there's something here that maybe I'm not as okay as I thought I was, or maybe why I'm driven to do certain things is coming from a place that's not the healthiest place. And
Really good.
there's a reason why that I'm doing that. And it's hard to process and accept, and not everybody is going to be open to that. You know, you bring it up with some people and you just see this wall comes down, and they can't face it, they can't acknowledge it, they're the people that go, you know, when I start talking about stress, like, I don't do stress. And you kind of sit there and you go, okay, you're the person that needs
Stress
to do
does you.
like,
Yeah.
we all do stress is, and not all stress is bad, but it's about how if we're not even going to acknowledge that we deal with stress, that's the times when things are not going to get spoken about and things are going to get pushed down, and that's when it starts to cause you see And this is really interesting for me, not necessarily through the retreat, but through my other patients, where you start seeing generations within the same family, and you can start seeing like, oh, okay, there's patterns here. And even within my own family, you know, doing some ancestral work myself, and seeing like, okay, there's patterns in my family history, just knowing the stories that I know, where it's like, okay, there's definitely something here as to why people have made certain decisions. And being able to kind of clear that and deal with that is really powerful. It's powerful for you, but it impacts, like, the energy change that happens with you impacts everybody else in your orbit, whether they're people that, you know, you spend a lot of time with, or whether it's a family member you might see like once a year or whatever. It changes the whole energy within the family, which is, it's really cool.
Pretty amazing.
So just a quick point, we've talked about kind of releasing it. So talking and putting language to it can be helpful, but there's also techniques that I use in clinic. So I generally tend to use the body to help us to release it. So you know, there's different.
That means pain, right?
That means pain. It does.
I feel like it means pain for me. Having a nice chat with you in your clinic, and all of a sudden you find the most painful place of my body that I didn't know existed, and push really hard, and I'm like, oh, this is why I love you.
Thank you so much for this. But then it's interesting with that, because a lot of the time those things that are held in the body, they stem from emotional pain. So almost what you're kind of doing is connecting the emotional pain with the physical pain, and that almost helps the nervous system and the brain to go, right, I get what this is now. And there's different techniques, you know. People might have heard of tapping, like you can like tap different points on your head depending on kind of which meridian. So tapping is a good technique that you can use for that. So there's different tools and techniques of how you can, you know, start to look into that, or how you can, you know, sort of start to process that. But I think just kind of recognizing that we carry emotion and stress and all of that within ourselves, but also sometimes it might not just be your stuff that you're carrying.
And what would you say is what impact have you perceived in people when you're going through and processing this? Like, and I guess if we're putting this back into like more of a business lens, like what difference do people see in their lives as they let go of some of this emotional stuff or process some of this? Do you have any perspective on that?
I think probably the biggest thing is resilience. So I think the biggest thing is how it makes your resilience so much better, that your ability to handle what life throws at you is better because you've got more capacity. It just, your capacity for dealing with everything that life is going to throw at you is better once you've kind of cleared all this stuff. I liken it sometimes to sort of carrying rocks in your backpack. And if you're carrying loads of rocks and you've got to hike up a mountain, that's going to be hard. But if we remove some of those rocks and go, well, actually, that's not serving you, that's not even your rock, get that one out. And suddenly you're walking up the mountain with maybe 2 rocks in your backpack, which is much, much easier. And then suddenly, if, you know, something happens on the mountain and there's a gust of wind and it's going to blow you over, you're less likely to get blown over if you've got less rocks in your backpack. So resilience is probably the biggest. Another thing I would say is the ability to have that, maybe not be so reactive, the ability to kind of step back and have that moment of, like, maybe when something's happened or you've had a phone call that you don't like, and everything in you's like, I want to scream at this person because they're not doing what they should be doing, and it's really messed up my whole timeline. And the ability to kind of just go, don't scream at this person because it's not going to help, that is better when you deal with all the stuff that you're dealing with, when you remove all this stuff that you're carrying, your ability to kind of take on those moments but take it on in a more calm way, and just sort of that calming presence has such an impact on people around you. Being able to
Yes.
just wait a beat before reacting, and you'll often find that you come in a less reactive way. If something's happened and someone's let you down, and you just go, oh my God, I can't believe you've let me down, you've done this, you've affected this, what you're going to get from that person is immediate defensiveness. And now
you're not going to get a good end result.
we're butting heads because we're now fighting. Whereas if I take that beat, I take that step back, and I'm like, okay, actually I'm disappointed that this has happened, and it's impacted things, but here's what we can do to go forwards. Or you can approach someone and go, okay, I'm a bit disappointed that this has happened, but I can understand things from your side. What do we do about this? When you approach someone with that attitude, you're going to get a much better response from that person rather than butting heads with them. So I think that's probably the biggest thing.
I can agree with that for sure. I think for me and Dave, that's definitely part of the wider overall journey that I can see that we've been on over the recent years, and you're definitely a big part of that change in us. And it does mean that you're able to do so much more. Like, you've got the capacity to take your business to a larger level than you could do before. So really, it's amazing to see how like your emotional baggage is playing itself out all the time in your life because of the limits you hit up against, and when you start to actually process it and move through it. And I think doing it with you hitting me with like a minute of pain somewhere is actually so much easier than sitting in like several hours of therapy trying to dig for whatever the thing is amongst this massive like dirt patch. I can see it, and I can see how it's on the journey. I'm not sure if the journey's ever done with all of us doing this. We just got to keep chipping away at it, and it gets lighter and lighter. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it would be lovely to think there is a time where the journey's done, where you're just like, right, no more. But yeah, I think it's just, it is a journey that you're on, you're not going to get to the destination and go, right, I never have to do anything else. It's kind of, I think you're right, you just keep chipping away, and it gets lighter. And just to your point of like dealing with it with me for that like minute of pain. So I generally, coming from the approach that I come from, I will tend to use the body to try and help release things. And there's times where you need to use the body and times where you need to use the brain and the mind. The other thing that can be really helpful is anything where you're kind of going into the subconscious mind. So I found that RTT that Rebecca does incredibly helpful for that, because that can kind of bring up stuff that you're not aware of as well. And so what's really cool is when you sort of tie what we talk about with what she does, and then that's really cool when it kind of comes together in that respect. And I know that's happened for some people from the retreat where they've worked with both of us, because sometimes talking doesn't work. It's not going to work. And even in the sense of when we're talking about like ancestral stuff, it might not work because you know what you're talking about.
You don't know what it was. Yeah.
You can look at things, and sometimes I'll just look at what was going on in the world in that moment. And there was one I had, not on the retreat, but fairly recently, where when we looked at the timeline that had showed up, it was around the time of, I think it was around the time of the end of the First World War. And the person we were talking about was a nurse looking after the soldiers that came back. And that's how she then met her husband, who she then married. So when you think of that and you go like, okay, so we can assume in that moment what she must have been seeing, experiencing, it was probably something to do with that. We don't know specifically. it can be something going on in the world, or it can be something in a specific family. So it's difficult. Sometimes you might go, well, there wasn't really anything going on in the world. Maybe they witnessed their parents have a fight. Maybe they witnessed a car accident. You just don't know what it is. So sometimes talking can help, but sometimes you need to use the body to do the release rather than use
and talk it out. And I guess that leads me nicely into one of your other insights from the retreat, where you were looking at using, like with meditation, obviously me and Dave are big fans of meditation and talk about it a lot, but one of your insights was about how to use the body alongside meditation to get better results.
Yeah, so it kind of comes into, with some people, a top-down approach works really well, and with some people a bottom-up approach works really well. So I love meditation now. I didn't. And I think for me, the problem was when I first started meditation, I would just sit there and I'd be like, okay, what's going on? And I couldn't do it. What I learned with me was I had to use my body to then be able to meditate. So if any of the people listening are someone who struggles to meditate, or you're just like, I just can't do it, it just doesn't vibe with me, you probably need to use your body to get you to the point of meditation. So what I mean by that is when a certain part of your brain gets overstimulated or gets activated, that part is called your amygdala. It's like your survival part of your brain. If that bit of your brain is too overactive, you are going to struggle with anything that's like top down. So you're going to struggle with meditation. You might struggle with journaling. You might find that you sit there and you go, I can't do it. And it's probably because your amygdala, which is in fight or flight, is going, there's a tiger chasing us. Why are you trying to sit here and, listen to some calming music? Exactly. We haven't got time for this. We need to be on. So using your body to kind of switch that part of your brain off then allows you to use those tools. So it can be, and using your body can be different ways. So it can be things like doing yoga. That's really good because you're connecting in with your body. So doing yoga, it could be things like somatic exercises. So those are kind of like really rhythmical exercises that you can do, and there's lots of different sort of things online. I've got a few links which I can send you the document if you want to put it in the notes or whatever, but there's different ones. So somatic exercises are really good because it uses your body to really help calm your nervous system down. Even something like grounding, so walking barefoot on grass or walking barefoot on the sand, being outside in nature, all of those kind of stuff, that's using your body. So what some people might need to do is to use their body to then be able to meditate. And actually,
you basically calm your nervous system down with some sort of movement. I feel like on the last day of the retreat, Simon did a qigong movement piece and then did a meditation, and there was great feedback on that.
I was just going to say that because I'd been speaking about it with one of the people on the retreat, how they needed to do their body work before they did their meditation, and like their morning routine was they would do their meditation and then their yoga and their stretches and stuff. And I was like, no, you need to flip it around. You need to do your yoga and your stretches and your body stuff and then end with the meditation. And it was amazing because then the next day Simon did this session where we did qigong and then did the meditation, and I was like, oh my goodness, that's exactly what I was talking about.
Wow. You're a manifester, Stacey. You ask for things and the world delivers.
I manifested it and Simon delivered.
It wasn't even the plan, I don't think. I think Dom was going to do something else, so you literally brought that into being.
Without even trying, I just did it. But and for me, like, I know that I find that so helpful. If I do body stuff, or that session where we did the qigong and then did the meditation, the meditation for me is so much stronger. It's more powerful. It's easier for me to get into the meditation. So I know I've had to kind of use my body to do that. And sometimes that's what people need to know. And that might be different at different times. there might be times where you're really good at meditation, and then you kind of sit down and you go, oh my God, I just can't, what's wrong with me? I just can't get into the meditation. What's happening? And it's in those moments where you can kind of go like, okay, maybe my amygdala's like, oh, something's going on here. Maybe I need to like look at the body before I do the meditation. So kind of bring in some of those body techniques and kind of understand that there's a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach. And sometimes you need to do one, and sometimes you need
The
to do
other
the
way
other.
around.
Not going to be the same all the time for you. It will differ.
That's amazing, Stacey. Like we could literally just talk here for hours. It's just like you just have so much insight, and the way you put it all together and explain things and all your experience is just so amazing. So maybe just bring us to some like key takeaways. I guess maybe before I ask that, what worked for you off the back of the retreat? Because obviously we're all like leading the retreat and helping people, but also we're on the retreat as well. So we kind of have our own takeaways and insights. What were your personal insights for yourself going through that?
So I think that it was, especially this last retreat, but even the one before, they were quite powerful for me, sort of like really connecting. And I think my most powerful takeaway this time was about trusting my intuition more, and really trusting that sort of feeling, like just generally in life, but definitely when I'm treating people, kind of just sometimes I'll get an idea of something and I'm like, I don't know where that came from, but just leaning into it and trusting it, because it's intuition, it's guidance, it's coming from somewhere. And I will always go like, okay, I have this feeling, let's test and see if it shows. And 90% of the time it does. And then
It's
people go,
amazing.
why did you look at that? I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know. And it's
That's
fine.
amazing.
It's fine that I don't know, because I just need to trust it. So when I have that feeling, I try to, and that's kind of what I'm trying to work on, of going like, okay, I need to connect more in with that, and just connect more with your body. The more you try to listen to your body and connect to your body, and kind of, you've got to build that relationship and kind of protect that relationship, because so much of life wants you to not listen to your body. It's even in things of like going to sleep when you're tired. If you're tired at 8 o'clock at night, go to sleep at 8 o'clock at night. But there's, society goes, why are you going to sleep at 8 o'clock at night? You need to stay up and watch TV till this time. Or, it's so much, it disconnects us from our body. So just connecting in, and I've tried to really do that, of like, okay, connect in with your body, especially when I feel out of sorts. If I feel out of sorts, I'm like, okay, I need to connect in with my body more, and listen to what
It's really
it's
good.
saying, because it's always trying to help you. But we're just not very good at listening.
Listening. Oh, it's really nice. Really, it's just, yeah, wonderful. And wonderful, like being on the journey with you. Like we both, if you haven't already listened to the podcast that Rebecca and I did on human design, Stacey and I are both human design manifestors. So we have an understanding with each other on a deeper level on that thing as well. So tell me then what you would like. So let's assume that people listening to this podcast, there's a good chance they've got an affinity with the sort of people that came to the retreat for us. So what would you say you would want their kind of key takeaways to be off the back of this conversation and the learnings that we had on the retreat?
So I guess key takeaway is not to fight with your body, to work with your body. Understand your body is always trying to help you. Now, we might not understand why or how or what makes sense with it, but there is always something that your body is trying to do to help. And trying to, I think that's the most powerful thing, like just connect into your body, listen to your body. Don't ignore those signals that come, because we are very good at doing that. We might ignore the signals of hunger. We might ignore the signals of
First.
I need to sleep, or thirst, or
Mm.
all of that kind of stuff. We're very good at ignoring that. Oh, just send this other email. Oh, just do this. Oh, just work for an hour more. Like, I've not eaten for, however long, and I'm actually quite hungry. So I think just connect, like understand your body is always trying to help you. Connect with your body as much as you can, and just try and like build that relationship. Is building that positive relationship with your body, with your nervous system, because that's how you get the most out of yourself. If your nervous system is functioning as best as it can, you're going to get the absolute most out of yourself. You're going to just fly with whatever you want to do. It's going to be like, wow, this seems really a lot simpler, or I can handle a lot more than I used to be able to handle, because your system's just able to withstand whatever's thrown at it. So I think probably that's the most important thing, is just kind of understand your body's always trying to help you and connect with it.
Could literally carry on talking to Stacey forever, and I think I will bring on my next session with her. That is tomorrow. If you enjoyed that conversation with Stacey and you haven't already listened to her other episode that we recorded as part of season 1, flick on back to episode 36 and you can get more wisdom from the amazing Stacey. If you want to find out more, and I would highly suggest get on that waiting list for Stacey, you can visit her website, which is tankchiropractic.com, and see what this amazing lady can do for you. This time next week, you'll be joined by myself and Dom, and we're going to be talking about challenging business relationships. We all have to deal with them in various forms, and a different way of thinking about them that is actually very empowering and will help you to make different decisions. So, until then, have a fantastic week ahead.